This task looks at masks and how to use them for compositing. So open the Photoshop document intro to masks.psd. It will open in the Photoshop workspace, and you need to open the layers palette, window, layers, and switch it on. So we have the layers here on the right. There are two layers in here. We have the door layer on the top and a forest path underneath. And we can turn on the visibility for them here on the left side. So I want to look through the door and look at the forest path underneath. So I could do this using the eraser tool. I'll just demonstrate. I could just erase out a big chunk. But you can see that's damaged my door layer, and we want to do non-destructive editing. We don't want to be taking things away from our original image. So that is not the best way to go about it. I'm just going to step back. The way I'm going to do it is to apply a mask layer and then paint into that. So the masks live at the bottom here on the layers palette. It's a rectangle with the circle in it. I'm just going to add a layer mask to the door. Masks work on black and white and shades of hues of grey in between. So I switch to a paintbrush. Anything I cover on my layer mask in black will show through. Just turn the opacity up. And if I want to change, if I want to go back into that, I can just switch the colours and paint back in, fill the mask back in with white. I can choose my brushes from up here. I've got at the moment a soft round brush, but I could choose a hard round brush or any other thing out of the brush palette. Choose the size, or I can use the square bracket keys on the keyboard. And I can choose the opacity of my brush, so how transparent it is. If I knock that down a little bit, I can just start to carefully go into my image. And that's a really nice way of building up transparencies on your image. And one of the reasons for doing this is it hasn't made any difference to my original image. My original door is still there. So if I right click on the door mask, I can disable that layer. And I've got the original image underneath. I can re-enable it to put it back, and I can go in and make changes to that as well. I'm going to move to the second set of images, the mask compositing. And here we're going to use a group of images, a group of separate images to create this composited picture here. So the images are the astronaut, background layer, a desert city, a robot, and an astronaut. I'm going to do this in the same way. I'm going to start with the desert city and make it a mask layer. And then I'm just going to paint into the mask. So that the background layer shows through. I've got the square bracket keys. I can resize the brush with, and I can also change the opacity so that I'm not having to make so many cuts in. Here where I can't really tell where my background is and where I want it to show, I can just go back to the layer itself and drop the opacity down for that layer. Now if I move back to the mask, I can clearly see where I want to mask out and where I want to paint in. And it's subjective, so everyone's will look different. And then when I'm happy with that, I can just turn the opacity back up to full. Go back to the mask and put stuff back in if I want to. So the robot works in very much the same way, so I can choose the robot layer and I can select and mask as we did in the previous tasks. If I want to refine that, I can choose select and mask and go back in and just make sure that everything is where I want it to be. And then the astronaut's going to be very similar. I'm just going to select. Finally, I'm going to put another mask on the face just so, because the exposure's quite low there, it's quite dark, it's hard to see. I'm going to come back to my astronaut layer. I'm just going to select the visor there. I'm going to make an adjustment layer on that. Going to up the exposure a little bit so that she has a bit of a face. It's a bit clearer. So that's my mask compositing.